Leave all that can be spared behind. We travel light. Let's hunt some orc.
Chapter 6. I would have followed you. The Fellowship splinters apart.
This is spoiler.
Hey everybody, I'm your host Pappy, and welcome to the final part of our Fellowship of the Ring series, Part 6, where we're wrapping up the first installment of our Lord of the Rings podcast. I'm so excited for the crew that we have tonight. Been with us through almost every episode. Let's introduce the guys, say who you are, where you're recording from, and then is there a franchise or trilogy that you like? It doesn't have to necessarily be your favorite or what you think is the best, but what's just a franchise or series of films that you enjoy? We'll go Eastus.
Should we stay away from this?
Whatever you want to. You know what? I'm not putting any binders on you, Brett. You're totally unbound. Let's start with you.
This is Brett, recording out of Fort Wayne. Oh, man. I mean, I think the best trilogy ever is this, but that's too obvious. I'll say one that everyone else probably hates, and that's the Dark Knight trilogy.
Who hates that?
Yeah, that's good.
Well,
man.
I know you guys don't like the Dark Knight
why do we
Rises as
hate
much
that?
as I do.
I love
do.
that movie.
I like it.
Okay, well then the Batman trilogy, the Dark Knight.
That's a good choice.
Now that it's popular.
See, Brett, you take the chains off. Everyone likes your pick. Who's next? I think it's
Take
Stevie?
a risk.
Hey, this is Stevie recording from Elkhart, Indiana. I'm gonna pull a Brett here and name two. I'm gonna go with the Evil Dead series. Even the new one, I love that movie. When they came out, I think it was in 2011, maybe. And then all the Mad Maxes, even Thunderdome. Mad Max is my shit. So yeah.
There's 4 Mad Maxes.
Yep.
It can be
It's a good
series.
trilogy.
It's a series. He said series.
Yep.
Well, the guy whose idea it was to do a series of episodes on the Fellowship of the Ring, host Josh, tell us where you're recording from and what franchise
Well, I'll say
do
I'm
you
recording from Goshen, and if you listen to last episode and this episode and previous spoilers episodes, we've got the Goshen Elkhart east to west thing backwards a couple times in a row now.
Yes, definitely.
That may be my fault.
like? It doesn't really matter.
I would say, yeah, I begged you all to do this. This series has been a lot of work and time overall. So to y'all, I'm really appreciative you let me beg you and agreed to do this because this has been really fun for me. And I know that it pains others like Brett, and we have to pay him double time to stay on with us once it gets to midnight. But Lord of the Rings, I would say, is what I'd answer to you, Pap.
I like it. It's a very fitting pick for the creator of these episodes. But Money Mike, didn't forget about you. I don't know where you fall in between Stevie and Josh, but where are you, and what franchise do you like?
I would say Lord of the Rings is probably the best. Another one that I like, I would say Indiana Jones trilogy, and it is only 3 movies. There is not a 4th movie. It's just 1, 2, and 3, and that's where it ends.
It
doesn't exist, huh? You're talking about, Corey, but there's only 3 movies in Indiana Jones.
Mikey giving away a potential blind spot as his punishment pick coming up. But I'll go next before we introduce the newest member of our fellowship. I don't know if I said I'm recording from Louisville, Colorado, and I'm going to go with, I actually think that the Toy Story franchise is the best movie franchise because I feel like you have to kind of lump in The Hobbit since there's character crossovers and plot crossovers. So if you're going to go more than a standalone trilogy, I think Toy Story really is the best. I even like the 4th one quite a bit. Forky is my boy. But last but not least, Kylo Red Memes, a.k.a. Corey. Where are you recording from and what franchise?
The most obvious franchise.
Well, I'm Corey, recording out of Simi Valley, California, and I know it's, like Brett said, it's very obvious, but my pick is The Mighty Ducks. The
Yes!
classic.
I thought you were gonna say cats.
The Brian Johnson levels of subversion.
Now,
Back Attack is
obviously,
back, Jack.
it's the Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles trilogy from the 90s.
Oh, let's
Yeah.
go.
Yep,
Just
Star Wars.
I'm sticking with it.
just name more 90s franchises and me and Brett will go nuts.
Tamagotchis, man.
I thought for sure it would have been
Hogs.
Terminator. Well, I got a Tamagotchi when I was in, I think, 4th grade for Christmas. But much like that, our fellowship gets some presents too from Galadriel. I think that's where we left off on Brett. But before we do that, I do want to tease out at the end of the episode. Josh, do you have a score update for where we are in our Lord of the Rings tournament? That
So
we've been
Brett's
doing?
been at the bottom, and so even though he's tied for last with Mikey, I think we're gonna call Brett Gollum. They have 2 points each.
Corey, you have 4.
Pappy, you have 7. Stevie is the ring bearer with 10 points. And
It's my cross to bear.
like I've been saying, there's going to be a lot of points flying around in this final round. So buckle up.
It's anybody's ball game, but like I mentioned, from Brett's part last time, Galadriel gives out some gifts to the Fellowship. Stevie, this is definitely not in the theatrical cut, and I kind of forgot about it since I watched the theatrical cut more than the extended cut. But do you remember any of the presents that are bestowed upon? the
Doesn't
Fellowship as
Galadriel
they
give Frodo that kind of like, I always call it light in a can, like when things get dark? Like, you can bring light.
The Light of Elendil.
She calls it the file.
anti-spider juice?
Light in a can. I do remember that one. That sticks out. I'm having trouble remembering the others. Someone pop in.
It's a
I think Legolas
bow,
gets a new bow, but Gimli's gets like the weirdest one.
just one last look at the love. I don't know what he says.
He gets a lock of her pubes.
Yeah.
Oh my gosh.
Yeah, 3. He asked for 1 pube and he got 3 from the love.
Like she has pubes. Come on.
The rest of the fellowship's like, could you just got more lambus bread?
I mean, if D&D canon is to be followed here, elves don't have body hair. So,
That's kind of what for sure.
anyway.
Well, speaking of someone who doesn't have body hair that I know of, Lutz, I think we talked about him on a previous chapter, but he's now leading the Uruk-hai army chasing after the Fellowship. They're traveling by river. I don't know if this river has a name.
The Thames.
What is
But
it,
look,
Brett?
it's one of the most mentioned places.
Yeah, but while you looked at the name of the river up, I knew it was important. But one of the most iconic shots is the Aragath. I think that's how you say it. The iconic statues. Josh, as someone who listed this as their favorite franchises, what emotion does that elicit when you see the Fellowship passing through those giant statues?
It's like, man, can we get a battle scene pretty soon?
So boring. So character
No, I think it just
development.
harkens back to what is one of the strongest character arcs in the whole trilogy. I think maybe in this film, Boromir's character arc is the best, but in the whole trilogy, it's probably Aragorn, and this is another example of him kind of, I don't know, seeing what he should do and having to make that deep choice, right?
I mean, I'm not big into bloopers. Like I said, it was like used a lot in the marketing material, and after the movie came out, it was a really famous blooper that like their hands are backwards. Like in one shot, the left hand's up on one of them, and then when they pass through it, the right hand's up. Like I said, I wasn't really big into that, but what I noticed this time for the first time is that Gollum is sitting on one of their eyelids.
No.
Did anybody else catch that?
Can you screenshot that?
Yeah. Gollum's like, hey. I'll send you a screenshot. He's like sitting on one of the. There's a shot as the camera like passes by their faces, kind of like a transition, and Gollum's kind of like perched up there. I never noticed that, and I looked it up as a IMDb fact, and I saw that. But they're traveling down the river to, I think, Amonhen is how you pronounce it, where they're kind of resting and regrouping. And Corey, we talked about how Boromir has the best arc. Frodo wanders away, and then what kind of happens here to set everything in motion?
Well, Frodo kind of just goes for a walk, and he sees Boromir collecting firewood or something, and Boromir starts talking to him. Like at first, it's kind of just like normal conversation. Like, look, man, we should really get to Minas Tirith. Those are my people. They're gonna help us out. and it kind of like starts getting heated though, like gradually. He starts to get a little bit more threatening, and it gets to a point where he tries to forcibly take the ring from Frodo. And to escape, Frodo puts the ring on, and he kind of just gets out of there. Like Boromir has like a moment of like clarity after all that. He kind of like realizes like, oh shit, that wasn't me. I fucked up.
Sean Bean's such like a fantastic actor, and like to know that he's just flopping around on the ground pretending to get punched by invisible Frodo just kind of makes me laugh. Brett, did you get a name on that river, by the way?
Yeah, it's Anduin.
Okay. And yeah, like kind of pools in this lake. But we talked about how the ring is a litmus test. So Boromir's already kind of shown his true colors. He's tried to, or maybe not true colors, but he tried to take the ring. He gave in to temptation. And Aragorn has a very different reaction. Stevie, what does Aragorn do given the same temptation?
So there's still kind of a cloud hanging over the Fellowship at this point. And I had a question. Like, Legolas mentions, like, when they arrive on shore, that he senses, like, a darkness, like, near them, or, like, coming. Was that Boromir, or is he talking about the Uruk-hai?
Probably the Uruk-hai, that's my guess, but...
Porque no los dos?
I don't know. The only reason I say it is because they cut, like, directly to him after he said that. But,
maybe it's a double meaning.
Like, Aragorn...
That's a good call, actually, because Galadriel kind of was able to call him out as the Judas Iscariot character, so maybe it makes sense that Legolas is picking up on that too.
Yeah, and I mean, Frodo is he's in a bad spot right now mentally. He just doesn't know who to trust. He doesn't know what to do, and he more or less, like every time, kind of just offers up the ring again, because he's offered it up to about everybody he meets in Middle-earth. And Aragorn pauses, and he ends up closing Frodo's hand. He realizes he has to let Frodo do this alone because it's going to tear the Fellowship apart. And, he lets him go.
Mm-hmm. And it's like we talked about in the last chapter. That was the last time we see the Fellowship together, and they're really going to start sort of splintering apart over the next 3 movies. Mikey, the battle that then commences here, Frodo's dipping out. You get some help from Merry and Pippin on the way out, but the rest of them are kind of left to fight the Uruk-hai. Did anything from this battle in the woods stand out to you as it plays out?
Yeah, it's a pretty physical battle. They're climbing all over these like rock structures and stuff, and lots of cool sword fighting moves. And there's just a lot of orcs compared to the Fellowship guys, so they're really outnumbered here, and they're holding their own, just trying to give Frodo some time to run away, but they're still getting overrun. They gotta do something else here because there's just way too many orcs. It kind of
features the coolest arrow shooting scene like in history, especially the
extended. And there's a really good moment when the orcs or Uruk-hai start swarming in, and Aragorn's by himself, and he's just like, it's like slow-mo, and he just puts up his sword, and he's just like ready to handle it, and he just starts taking them out. Like he's such a badass.
I agree, though. We should shout out to the arrow play in this movie as a whole. From last time in the Mines of Moria with Boromir and the door, and then like Aragorn kind of like casually dodging them as they run out of the mines, and then in this Legolas, and then even Boromir's scene, which we'll get to in a minute, like heavily involves arrows as well, and it's awesome.
Yeah, Legolas basically has a gun, and he's
it's like a cheat code.
Yeah. He's so awesome.
Yeah, he can just dispatch enemies so much faster than anybody else. Whereas Aragorn's like in a fist fight with one of them. Legolas takes out 5 in the meantime. But you mentioned the Boromir scene, Josh. Boromir blows the Horn of Gondor. He's fighting with Merry and Pippin. And Brett, you've kind of been the resident literature reference for this Lord of the Rings series, and we all really appreciate that. Lurtz. I think that's Lurtz. Lutz. The king Uruk-hai, he's a conceit of the movies, right? He's not a character in the books at all.
There's like a leader of like the orcs and like a leader of the Uruk-hai that like clash in the Two Towers a lot as they're taking Merry and Pippin away. But I don't know if it's probably like a little bit of a mix of it, but it's definitely put a spotlight on it for the movie. Like, it's definitely overplayed, I would say, personally, but...
Mm-hmm. Well, yeah, because the reason I was asking is, like, Boromir's about to get blasted in the face with an arrow from Lurtz, and he's stopped at the last second from Aragorn. But Corey, do you remember, does that match what happens in the books as far as how Boromir dies? Is there any difference?
He gets peppered by like 30 arrows in the books.
Yeah, I recall it being very similar in the book, although I don't remember the specifics.
Well, I mean, yeah, he kind of gets peppered with a lot of arrows here too, right? It's not that different, but either way, Boromir, like I said, about to get blasted in the face. Aragorn jumps in at the last second, and Josh, you called him the Judas Iscariot character. Is there any redemption for Boromir here in this last speech? He confesses his sins, basically, right? It's something...
No, yeah, and I think that he succeeds where Judas fails. He goes, and one thing I don't think we really hit on is that when he blows the Horn of Gondor, I think a lot of people interpret that as being like, oh, he's calling the rest of the Fellowship to him so they can meet up. But I think in the books it's like the orcs hate that man-made sound so much, it just like pisses them off.
Yeah. It's also when Gondor was at its height, like enemies would. Here I'm going to use this word again. They would like quail. They would just like run with fear. Like it pretty much meant their doom. So it's kind of like how far it's kind of fallen that they didn't really get scared. But I'm sure you're right. The horn's probably designed to hurt them.
It's also kind of like magic in a way, because when he blows it in the books, like his brother hears the horn from like Gondor or wherever he is, like very faintly. He like hears it from far away.
Nice.
He knows Boromir's in some deep trouble.
Yeah.
When their dad hears it, it's like, that's my favorite son's horn. What is that?
I don't want to like make everyone sad or anything, but like Boromir doesn't like die till the Two Towers in the books. So.
Oh, really?
Like the first book ends, I guess technically the second book, but with the orcs like attacking, and then the whole fight takes place at the very beginning of the Two Towers. But it's better this way. I mean, let's be honest.
Well, that's what, Stevie, you and I were talking before this podcast. I think that, Josh, you said earlier that I think you said Fellowship is the best at some point, but I don't know if it's my favorite, but I think it has by far the best ending, Stevie, especially the emotion that plays out with Frodo and Sam here.
Yeah, it's a clean ending. As far as like questions like being answered and stuff like that. And I think it's the best ending between Sam and Frodo, even more than like Return of the King. Just that kind of emotional bond that those two share, and how, Frodo just doesn't want to be a burden to anybody anymore other than like unto himself. And Sam going out there willing to die just to like go on the journey with him. Super emotional moment. And I was always shocked those two are never nominated for some type of acting award, honestly.
Yeah. Only one actor was ever nominated in this movie, and that was Gandalf in maybe the third movie, but no other acting.
That's shocking to me.
I agree. Like, especially like Viggo pretty much kills it throughout.
Yeah.
So I figured he'd at least get one nomination.
So who's your all favorite in this film? We're in chapter 6 here. Like, I want to go with an underdog and maybe say Ian Holm. Just not because he's maybe the best, but it shocked me how good he was, and that I hadn't noticed that when I was a little younger.
Yeah, he's like the best with what he was given. I don't know. I've always loved Legolas and Gandalf. I would say too, of course. Legolas is my favorite.
I like Lurtz because he's the only person of color.
Oh my god.
I can't believe they gave him the name Lurtz. He sounds like he works in accounting. Give this TPS report to Lurtz. He's got it.
Sounds like he should be a brand of potato chips. It's really throwing me off. But yeah, I don't know if it was even... I mean, we talked about it too. We've talked about a lot of the memes. There was a lot of like memes similar to the ones that have developed between Poe and Finn with the Star Wars new trilogy where there seemed to be some sort of like homosexual tension between Sam and Frodo, and Josh told us not to make any of those jokes on these podcasts, so we won't. But Josh, did you mentioned that in the Star Wars episode that you picked up between the chemistry of Finn and Jesus Christ, Finn and Poe. Do you detect anything here? All jokes aside,
I get why people interpret it, and like whatever, it's funny if people want to make fun of it, but like I listened to a podcast before that every time they mentioned the character of Sam, that's all they talked about. It just kind of pissed me off. But I think the reason it does is because I think this harkens back to like this Tolkien time that he remembers when gentlemen were gentlemen, and like you are really fiercely loyal to like your close friends and neighbors. And I don't know, I feel like people really miss that.
Sam, I'm glad you're with me.
Did you guys see the movie Tolkien at all? Any of you guys? It shows Tolkien in World War I, and he's like he's an officer, but he's kind of like in over his head, and he's in the trenches. And there's a guy that's kind of like helping him through it, and it's this guy's not an officer; he's a guy under him, but his name is Sam. And I don't know if that was like what really happened while he was in World War I, if there was this guy named Sam that helped him through it, but you know, they kind of draw the parallel there, and I liked that a lot.
I think that was all bullshit. I think that I heard that was not true.
But what about what I said, though, Pap? Don't you think that there's some truth to just male-to-male relationship that was maybe a little different in the 30s?
Well, I think that's the beautiful thing of it. And like just to reference another podcast that we did together, Josh, on Jojo Rabbit, I was like, I think this isn't a spoiler or anything, but I just thought it was a little cheap that a character develops a relationship with another character purely based on a crush or like sexual attraction. And I think that if that was present, it would kind of cheapen the relationship. It's just really touching to me that they're like best friends. You know what I mean? He was willing to go drown in the river for his best friend, even though he doesn't know how to swim. But that's Frodo and Sam. Corey, to close us out here, to close out our 6-part series, where does the rest of the Fellowship end up? Frodo and Sam are on their own. Where do the other seeds scatter to?
Well, Merry and Pippin, they get kidnapped by Uruk-hai, and Aragorn, Legolas, and Gimli are on their own. And the way it ends is they decide to set off to go rescue Merry and Pippin, which leads us into the Two Towers. And it kind of ends there, if I remember correctly, but when I saw this movie in theaters, I had no knowledge of Lord of the Rings. And I gotta admit, man, I was very confused because it just ended there. And this was kind of at a time when movies didn't seem to be guaranteed sequels. You know, like back then in 2001 and before that, if George Lucas wasn't directing it, like as far as I knew, it was no guarantee of sequels.
I thought we were going to defeat Sauron at the end of this movie.
This was, I mean, they filmed all three. I think this was, if there's ever a guarantee, not.
But
by
to
George
Corey's
Lucas,
point, we knew there was going to be a trilogy, yes, but just the way you took in media wasn't necessarily everything has a sequel, so you're not used to this like cliffhanger ending, right?
I mean, plus if you think about like your Joe Blow moviegoer, and I was like 12, you know, I had no knowledge of Lord of the Rings and what it was. I thought this was going to be the Lord of the Rings the movie. I didn't know there was 3 parts.
You didn't know Lord of the Rings? What a nerd.
Okay, so to put a bow on it a little bit, we were talking about, you know, it really did sort of change the way stories are told. I mean, Stevie, do you think that Lord of the Rings kind of changed everything? Like, can we draw a dotted line from the success of this franchise to the way that Marvel's structured their, you know, quote, cinematic universe, unquote?
Yeah, I think so. I mean, this is a sweeping trilogy. I mean, if you watch the extended cuts, I think it's over 10 hours of just this. And I think really people enjoy like seeing these large overarching stories with different characters. So we have like Netflix models and all these streaming services that get 10 hours in one day. You can binge it. Same with kind of like MCU and movies. just these giant sweeping stories. I think it really starts with Lord of the Rings when it comes to stuff like that.
And there was such like a coordinated marketing campaign around it too. Like there were video games and like all of this other like content that came out. Yeah, it was.
Yeah, we used to play them.
It was a really fun.
Was it
one
like the
I
Two
played.
Towers one for PlayStation?
Yeah.
Was that the one?
I think so. You're like defending a castle, and it's probably Helm's Deep. Yeah.
Yeah, that was
like
it.
the first half was like Fellowship, then I got into Two Towers. But yeah, it was. I mean, it was a significant event for all of our lives. I think it's probably why we carved out 6 episodes worth of content to do it. Does anybody else have any final thoughts on the trilogy?
I have an answer to one of your questions earlier. Lurtz is 100% a Peter Jackson
I could see
creation
that.
for the movie.
That makes sense. So before we determine the Gollum, I did want to keep it kind of true to spoilers. We always give it a yes or a no, but let's do a quick kind of rapid fire. Give the movie a yes or no, and then kind of either anything that we didn't talk about or what it's meant, the trilogy's meant to you, or anything else that you want to say before we close it out. I'll go first. It's a definite yes for me. Like I said, this is my first exposure to not just Lord of the Rings, like basically all fantasy, and it's now a genre that I'm very into. I like it a lot. So I do think that one thing that maybe we didn't talk about, and one thing that's maybe not talked about enough with this movie, is that it came out like 2 months after September 11th in December 2001, and if we keep doing Lord of the Rings like kind of special every year, we're gonna end this at the 20-year anniversary of the movies. But I think that like part of the reason this captures so much of the zeitgeist was its proximity to that event, and like everyone was just ready for a big escapist kind of good guys versus bad guys story, and it's really lightning in the bottle. I think the movies would have been successful otherwise, but I think a lot of people kind of forget about that aspect. But anyway, hard yes for me. Josh, why don't you give us your final thoughts and yes or no for the Fellowship of the Ring?
I love this movie. I don't think we've said that enough. Just like we made a lot of jokes and stuff, and it's just so fun to talk about with the jokes, taking it seriously, getting deep into it, or just making memes, which we will do on Instagram. Right, Corey?
Yeah.
Wait, we do memes now?
Brett hates memes. He's too old for memes. But anyway, Corey, you kind of inspired me to really pursue a way to tackle this franchise, because we had that conversation and you were like, yeah, I'm too nervous to do Lord of the Rings for Big Dumb Movie podcast or any other podcast. So once we all agreed to do this, I was like, oh my God, like what did I commit the group to do? But then as I just started watching the film, I was just like, hell yes, this is totally worth every second of it.
Yeah.
Corey, were you happy to go on the cinematic journey with Josh, little Frodo and Sam?
I was
action?
very happy to join Brother Josh, and I'm going to give this a hard yes. I love Lord of the Rings. I love it more and more as time goes on. This movie is very good. Like, I think one of you mentioned this earlier, but like the way this film is structured works the best as a standalone movie, because it has, it introduces everyone, they go through a little bit of a journey, and then it has an ending. And it's just an overall good movie. I love what Lord of the Rings has done for fantasy in general. The results aren't always good. Like, we got some like Aragons and your Chronicles of Narnia in there, but Lord of the Rings kind of made fantasy accessible, which I like a lot. And it's a hard yes. I love it a lot.
Mikey, why don't you go next?
Yeah, I think like you said, Pap, this was our first exposure into like a fantasy type genre, or at least for me, at least. I don't think I had watched too much stuff before that, but yeah, it's amazing, and it still holds up. It's been like 19 years now, and you can I don't know, maybe have some problems with the CGI now. Maybe it's not as nearly as good as stuff nowadays, obviously, because computers and everything are so incredible at what they do. But I mean, the way this thing looks to movies now, I mean, it still holds up. It's a great story. Just the last episode we had, it was like literally 40 minutes of fighting, and then we get a breather before we start fighting again. So it's got all of the pacing for a 3.5-hour movie, which is like unreal to say that. It's nonstop action, really. There's very few parts of the movie where you feel like you need a break from it all, but it works. Everything in this movie just has everything going for it. I love this movie. It's a 5 stars for me.
That's high praise coming from the practical effects guy that everything in here holds up. But last but not least, the current holder of the ring who might potentially be deciding our punishment episode in the next segment. Stevie, what's your yes or no for Lord of the Rings?
Hardest of yeses. This is my favorite trilogy of all time. And I'm really happy Josh proposed the idea of breaking this down into 6 episodes. I know I was only on probably 3 of them, but this was a blast to even be on here talking about these movies. Kind of like you guys said, this was my first kind of dip into fantasy as a young 10-year-old who didn't even know what Lord of the Rings was until that December. Now, me and my wife cut out one day every year and watch all 3 extendeds in one day.
Nice.
So I absolutely love these movies, and yeah, I hope we do 2 Towers.
So, not surprisingly, Trivia Master Josh, Fellowship of the Rings preserved.
Yes.
Hey, Pappy, should I call in to do my yes or no, or?
Oh yeah, sorry, Brett. I almost forgot about Brett.
Leave a voicemail.
Brett, the current
You cannot
Gollum.
wheel
Leave a
it.
message.
He's been following us for 3 days. What do you give?
This is probably my favorite and best movie that we've spoiled, in my opinion, just at least when I was on. I know it gets thrown around a lot by me, but I think this movie is an absolute masterpiece. I'm with Stevie. This is my favorite trilogy. I think it's the best trilogy, and this is my favorite one of the 3. Extended version's great. It's just, I love everything about it. I think people, specifically like Kevin Smith, who say this series is just people walking for 3 movies, is really ignorant and selling it short. That's like saying this original Star Wars trilogy is just them flying around for 3 movies. It's just stupid, and I think he's just jealous, and he's a big meanie head. This is a 5 of 5 stars for me. It's the best. I love it. Definitely yes.
What's with the stars thing? We're doing stars now.
No.
But anyway, Josh, I flubbed that transition. I had it so well when it was just Stevie, but you want to take over for the final trivia portion here?
I would say that, yes, to Brett's point earlier, The Last Jedi actually is about 2 ships just kind of flying.
No, they go to a casino.
And Superman Leia.
Okay, I'm so pumped for trivia. This is the most work I've ever put into trivia. This is like Jordan or Pappy status. So, okay. So Frodo, Samwise, Gandalf, Legolas, Gimli, Aragorn, Boromir, Peregrine Took, Meriadoc Brandyback,
Fool of a took.
and also add to your list Gollum and Bilbo. The ring bearer shall lead us, and
No.
here's how this will work. Choose a number between 1 and 11, and I'm going to give you the middle name of the actor. If you can name that fellowship member, you will get 3 points. If you guess, you just move on to the next thing. But if you want a hint, I'll give you a hint, but you'll move down to 1 point. You also have, as we'll see when we get into Stevie's, a couple of other ways to earn points based on who that actor is. So Stevie, I have all these characters listed randomly.
7.
7.
The holy number.
Reese.
Oh, good lord.
Remember, you can take the hint and earn just 1 point by getting it right.
No. His name's Dominic. What is the other guy's name? I don't think.
So he's trying to name the character whose actor has that middle name. That's
Yeah,
what's
you can
happening
name
right
you can name the actor or the character. I mean, we all know him, I think.
And we each have a hint that we can use once.
You can use a hint.
I'll take a hint.
Okay.
Wait, only one. We only get 1 hint.
Per character.
Okay, yeah, give me a hint.
This actor is missing part of his left middle finger, just like Mr. Hooley at Concord High School. No one's going to laugh at that one.
Worth 2 points.
Just get this moving along. I'll say Ian Holm.
That is
Bilbo.
incorrect. This is Gimli, and this is a weird one because his name is actually John Rhys Davies, and Rhys is considered his middle name from everything that I could find.
Oh,
I thought you said his middle name was Reith.
Oh, wow.
Said Rhys.
It's Reese.
I thought you said Reith. Like. Oh, okay, my bad.
Anyway, cross Gimli off, but Stevie, you have more ways to earn points here. Can you tell me what country he was born in? And if it's the United States, I need the state.
John Rhys Davies?
Yep.
Oh, I'm fucked.
He's a tough one.
I'll say Australia.
He was born in England. And the very last way to earn points,
England's not a country, though.
I'm going to edit that out. How old is he?
Right now?
Yes, as of this recording.
74.
Oh my, he's 75. That'll earn you 2 points.
Holy shit.
You're up to 12.
so you can get points if you're close enough.
Yes, on that
How
one.
close?
Well, you'll see as we go, but I do have...
That was a nightmare.
It's okay, so if you get it perfect, you get 3 points. 1 year away, 2 points. 2 years away, 1 point. Okay, so Gimli's off the table, 7. So, Pappy, you are up.
Let me go with 1 for 1 ring to rule them all.
Mark.
I'm gonna go with Pippin.
Ah, that's incorrect, and you didn't use your point or your trivia question either.
No, I did
if
not.
you would have listened to Chapter 2, you would have heard that Sean Mark Bean, Boromir's character. So, what country or state was he born in?
He's from England, the United Kingdom.
That'll earn you a point, Pappy. And how old is he?
I'm gonna go with 59.
He is 60. That's 2 points. That's 3 points for you. You're up to 10.
Ba, 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 ba.
Nice. And we will snake back through, so you will have another shot. Corey.
I pick a number, right?
Yes.
Except for 1 or 7.
9.
Yeah.
This character has no middle name. This actor has no middle name.
Pick one.
What?
This actor has no middle name.
Ian McKellen?
Incorrect. Your clue would have been his favorite breakfast is porridge. This is Billy Boyd, who plays Peregrine Took. What country is he from?
Scotland?
Wow. +1 on that one. I thought that was one of the hardest ones. Scotland. And how old is he?
Let's see. I'm 33, so he must be 44.
Billy Boyd is 51. So you just earned 1 point there.
Wow.
You're up to 5.
It's like
Yeah.
Josh's age.
Seriously?
What
Mikey.
character was that?
Peregrine Took. Pippin.
Pippin.
Happened?
Mikey,
Mikey, you're up.
I'll do number 3.
Okay, this is an interesting one. The middle name is Bernard Patrick Luke. 3 middle names, as it were.
I'll say Ian McKellen. It seems like an old guy thing.
Incorrect. It's Mary. Dominic Bernard Patrick Luke Monaghan. I just thought that's really interesting too. We just went from Pippin with no middle name to Mary with 3. But Yeah. What country was he born in?
He's from the UK. He's from England, right?
He's from West Germany. I would have given you Germany as well. Do you have an age?
He's 42.
He is 43, so you will earn 2 points for that. That's huge for you when you're fighting to not be a Gollum, I will say. Well, Mary's would have been that J.J. Abrams actually considered him for a lead for Disney's Force Awakens, but ended up telling him he could not be because Disney wanted relative unknowns. I thought that was kind of interesting. Who's next? Brett? Go for it.
I think so. I will go 6.
This person's middle name is Holm.
I'll say Bilbo. I'll take a hint.
He sparked a stage trend by getting fully nude in the 1977 Richard Eyre production in the UK.
Oh man. I'll still say I'll say Bilbo.
Good. You should have taken the 3 points, Brett.
I know. I'm an idiot. I know. I got.
His full name is Ian Holm Cuthbert. So you got 1 point for that.
I figured.
What country was he born in?
I'll go with the UK.
Got another point for that. And how old is he? And I'll give you a hint. He's not young.
I will say he is 72 years old.
He's 88, so you get no points for that.
You know what? I swear I just looked that up.
Negative 16 for Brett.
So you and Mikey are still tied for Gollum going into this last round. Brett, you are up again as we snake back down.
Wait, can I ask a question real quick before
Yes.
Brett picks? Will the ring bearer be doling out a -1 at the end of all of this still?
Of course.
Oh, Jesus. Okay. Oh, my God.
I'll go 10.
Okay. This person's middle name is Murray. 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 That's a Murray.
I feel like I have to go for it. No, I'll take a hint.
That's a Murray.
He was granted knighthood all the way back in 1991.
I'm gonna go with Ian McKellen.
That's right. Gandalf the Grey. 1 point for you, Brett. What country was he born in?
I'm gonna go with the UK.
It's correct. And how old is he?
Ooh, he's pretty old. 79.
He's 80, Brett. You just earned 4 points. Pappy might not even, or Stevie might not even be able to screw you, even if he wants to. You're at 8. Mikey, you're up. This is a pretty huge one, guys. It's pretty big. Pretty big.
4.
This person's middle name is Jordan.
Miss you, Jordan.
Orlando Jordan Bloom. Does that sound like a name?
Remember, you
I'll
can't
say-
take the hint.
Yeah, give me a hint.
He was in 2005's Green Street Hooligans, where he received a scar above his eye.
Oh.
Oh, Frodo.
Correct. Frodo Baggins. You
I
got
thought
1
it
point
was,
for
I thought it
that.
was Vigo Jordanson.
That's how we
Vigo
pronounce it
Jordan.
on this pod. But
It's Viggo Mortenstein.
Mr. Morgenstern.
where was he born?
He is from. God, where is he from? I can't really tell where he's from. And if he's from the U.S., we have to say a state.
Yes.
It's so hard.
That's kind of
Like
booty.
a region, maybe?
A
Josh is game.
state.
State. It's state, man.
Yeah, I'll say he's from California.
He's from Iowa. One of the hardest ones
I was
on
going
the
to say
map.
Missouri.
How old is he?
Bush.
Brett almost gave it away earlier on
Yeah.
last pod.
I looked it up, too.
Ooh, Oh, if only I had paid attention. I'll say he's like 36.
Woo.
He's 38, which means you get 2 points. Mikey, you might be locked in to Gollumness at this point.
So he got 1 point.
Wait, that's not
last
true.
part,
Corey
right?
needs it. Corey needs points.
Oh no.
You are up. You are at Gollum at this very second with 5 points.
Okay. What's left? 2.
Jonathan Blanchard.
That's easy.
Remember, you can use the hint.
So that's the middle name, Jonathan Blanchett.
Blanchard.
Blanchard. Yeah, I'll use the hint.
This is maybe one of my favorite hints. In August 2016, he paddled into an Italian beach completely nude, with Katy Perry, in parentheses, clothed, also in tow.
What?
Easy.
I'm gonna guess Orlando Bloom.
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
Oh yeah.
Yes, but that's
Hang
1
dong.
point. You're still tied for Gollum. So, what country is he from? Where does he live? Where is he from? Where is he born?
Australia?
That's right?
He's from England.
Ooh.
Oh my god.
I would have guessed Australia.
And how old
Oh,
is
no.
he?
My hands are so sweaty.
46.
He is 42.
Woo-hoo.
So
Ah.
you're only awarded 1 point,
And
and
God
you
have
and
mercy on
Mikey
your
are. Yeah. Pappy, this is also equally huge because you're definitely within striking range here. You have the numbers 5, 8, and 11 left.
I really want to be Lord of the Rings. Give me 11.
Okay. This person's middle name is Clement. Maybe it's pronounced Clement.
Vigo Clement Morgenstern?
That's incorrect.
That's inclement.
Andrew Clement Circus, who plays Gollum.
Ah.
Oh,
You can still
he-
You can still do some damage here. Do you know what country he's from?
Is he from England?
He is, so you get a point for that. And how old is he?
I'm gonna say he is 61 years old.
52.
Andy Serkis is not 52, Brett.
He does not look 52. He does not look as old as Mary or whatever that was.
He's 55 though, which is out of reach for any points for Pappy.
That ring is
Sorry.
really taking a toll on him throughout the year.
So Stevie, let's just do one for fun, right?
I want to play. What numbers do I
8
have?
or 5. See how
Ooh,
dominant
I'll
you can
pick
be.
I'll pick a Jellicle 8.
Jellicle
Jellicle.
Peter. Remember, you can take a hint to get just 1 point.
I'll take a hint.
As his middle name would imply,
No.
he went full frontal in 2016. Captain Fantastic.
It can't even be true.
Viggo Mortensen?
Yes, you get the
gone-
point.
He'd gone full frontal before that, though.
Dude.
Where were you born? Where was he born?
I know everybody thinks I think everyone thinks he's like a foreigner, but I think he's from New York.
He is from New York. You get another point. And how old is he? You already have 2 points here. Wow, dominating performance.
I think he's 62.
He's 61, so you get another.
Let's go.
So Stevie, you are the Lord of the Lord of the Lord of the Rings. Let's go. You have the option to give anybody you want a -1, and I do have a bonus trivia question for a tiebreaker if it needs to be, but that's really up to you.
Okay, so who's who's Gollum right now?
Mikey or Corey at 6?
Wait, they're tied?
Yes.
Oh no.
Let them fight it out in the bonus then. I don't want to choose.
So who will you give your -1 to?
Pappy.
It's kind of inconsequential, but just you can just name Pappy if you want.
It's not very jellical of you.
Yeah, I'll name Pappy.
Okay. Maybe that'll come into play later.
I want to give both men a fighting chance.
Okay, so this is the closest to Mikey. You had been a Gollum most you had been a Gollum most recently. So I'm gonna make you go first. In years, how long did Bilbo possess the One Ring? This is an approximation, but this is what the internet gives. It's ish.
Yeah,
This many
in
years
real life?
ish.
Well, we found out that Bilbo lives way longer than what he's supposed to in the beginning of the movie. Everybody's a little surprised by how old he is, right? I'm going to say he's had it for like 80 years.
Corey. To not become Gollum like Bilbo was desperately trying to do.
I'll go with 79.
That's dirty, but it plays right into your hands.
61 years.
60 years. If Brett could stop preempting me on trivia, that'd be great. 60 years for Bilbo Baggins carrying the One Ring. Mikey, you're Gollum. Steve, will you give Mikey a punishment movie?
Yeah, Mikey likes weird movies. This is a really weird movie with Willem Dafoe. I think he hangs dong too,
Antichrist.
so... Antichrist, Mikey. Brett, let me reveal it.
It's not his real dong, though.
You know what?
Dong.
I'm down to see some weird dong, so it's not
Dong
even a
dummy.
punishment to me.
Rumor has it his dong was so big that they used a fake one. Somebody else's.
Well, there goes my trivia question.
Well, I would have won that, so you're welcome, everybody.
Pappy, back to you.
You can wrap it up, Josh. It's your thing.
Thanks, Pappy. Not that I had this written or anything, but just to close, this saga is really cleanly about good and evil, and when Stevie got the One Ring, he did decide to use it for evil instead of good. And what's really the difference between a ring bearer and a Gollum? And all along my plan was for the ring bearer to have to fight the Gollum at the very end to see who will have to watch the Antichrist. So I have a last minute one-on-one fight, Mikey against Stevie.
Well, I was going to watch it with him, so joke's on
But you will have to host the episode, and Mikey will not have to watch it anymore. Here's the contest. Stevie, you get to go first because you are the ring bearer.
Okay.
There are 8 total ring bearers ever. Name one for 1 point.
Frodo Baggins.
1 for Stevie. Mikey?
Saruman.
Saruman never held the ring.
Oh, whatever. Josh, can you just hurry up and make me lose? I'm tired of being disrespected by my lack of knowledge.
What's your guess, Saruman or Sauron?
Well, now I know it's not Saruman, it's Sauron.
All right, I'm going to give Mikey 0 for that. Stevie?
Bilbo Baggins.
Mikey?
I don't care, man. Just make me lose. I'm already ready to watch this dude's weird dong in Antichrist.
So much like Gollum is dispatched into the fiery depths of Mordor, Mikey is cast aside.
I'll swallow it. End it.
Kill me.
Thanks for joining us. Can't wait to do that punishment movie. That's our next punishment movie. That was...
No, it's not.
Nope.
I have to do 120 Days of Sodom soon, so that might be coming out soon-ish. But I think that's all for this. Thanks for joining us on this wild 6-part series, and all the way to the end, even you, Brett. That was Spoilers.
May it be your journey on to light that
Smeagol character was supposed to be pumped to get a chance at the ring at the end. What the hell?
He was promised that sweet Defoe dong.
I thought Josh just pulled that trivia out of nowhere so I'd lose. I was going to be real steamed.
My plan was always to have the ring bearer get challenged by Gollum.
I didn't use it for evil.
Gollum was so weak-willed.
Spoiler Man here. Our email is podcastspoilers@gmail.com. Twitter is @spoilers_pod. Our Instagram is Podcast Spoilers. It's lit. Josh Hensley from the Rutabaga wrote our theme song. Our spoilers hotline is 903-776-4507. That's 903-SPOIL07. Please support this podcast. Leave us some stars and some words. Now you can check us out on Spotify, YouTube, Stitcher, Apple, and Google Podcasts. If you enjoyed what you heard today, subscribe on SoundCloud or iTunes.
Doesn't the Shire have a really sad ending at the very end?
Yeah, it does. In the book or in?
Yeah, don't a bunch of orcs come by and just slaughter the place?
Saruman and Wormtongue have completely destroyed the Shire. It just made it awful.
The scourge, the rape of the Shire.
That's pretty much what it is. And then Wormtongue slits his throat at the end.
His own
Clatuinians come through.
He slits Saruman's throat.
Really?
Man, that's dark. That it has all been in vain. The Fellowship has failed.
I don't know if I would say I'm an expert, man. My mic is jacked up. What are we doing?